The sound of the clock ticking on the wall filled the silence between us. Emily sat across from me at the dinner table, her fingers absently stirring the deep red liquid in her wine glass. The candlelight flickered, casting soft shadows on her face, making her look almost too perfect, too composed. I watched her closely. She was too calm. For weeks now, I had noticed small changes, little things that didn't add up. The late nights at work, the sudden bursts of energy when she got dressed, like she had a reason to look stunning. She used to be content lounging around in sweatpants, hair in a messy bun, binge-watching TV shows with me on weekends. But lately she was different, more distant, more alive. At first, I told myself I was overthinking. Maybe she was just going through a phase. Maybe work stress was getting to her. But deep down, I knew better. And tonight, as I watched her take a slow sip of her wine, I couldn't ignore it anymore. I set my fork down, the sound of metal against porcelain sharper than I intended. Emily glanced up, her eyebrows barely lifting, unbothered. That only made the feeling in my gut twist tighter. I exhaled slowly, measuring my words. Then, without breaking eye contact, I asked, "Are you seeing someone else?" It was direct. No bidap, no subarcoatin. I wanted the truth. Emily's reaction was immediate, but controlled. She blinked. Once, but she didn't flinch, didn't shift in her seat, didn't break eye contact. Her fingers still traced the rim of her wine glass. Slow, deliberate. And then, after the briefest pause, she let out a soft chuckle. "Babe, don't be ridiculous." Smooth. Too smooth. There was no offense in her voice, no nervousness, no signs of guilt. Just rehearsed dismissal. She reached for her fork and took another bite of food, as if I hadn't just accused her of the worst possible betrayal. "You still here," waiting, daring her to say more. She didn't. Instead, she tilted her head slightly, giving me that familiar, practiced smile. The one that had always melted my defenses. The one that had made me believe she could never lie to me. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to. But something in my chest tightened, a warning. That wasn't the smile of a woman telling the truth. That was the smile of a woman who had just gotten away with something. My throat felt dry. The warmth of the dinner, the flickering candles, the softness of the music playing in the background. It all felt fake now. A carefully staged scene, distracting me from the fact that something was very, very wrong. But I forced myself to nod, to drop it, for now. Because if she was lying, I was going to find out, and when I did, there would be no escape. The house was quiet, too quiet. Emily had just stepped into the shower, and the soft hiss of water running through the pipes filled the air. The bathroom door was slightly ajar, letting out waves of steam that curled into the dimly lit bedroom. I sat on the edge of the bed, absent-mindedly scrolling through my phone, trying to focus on something. Anything other than the uneasy feeling sitting heavy in my chest. And then, out of nowhere, her phone buzzed. A small vibration against the wooden nightstand. I glanced at it, barely thinking. Just a quick look. Instinct. But what I saw made my entire body go cold. The screen lit up, revealing a text message. No contact name, just a number. And then, the words that made my stomach drop. "Tonight was amazing. I can't stop thinking about you." The air felt sucked out of the room. I blinked, my hands suddenly clammy, my pulse hammering in my ears. I read the message again. And again. Maybe I misread it. Maybe I imagined it. But no, it was real. I swallowed hard, my mind racing. It had to be a mistake. Maybe it was one of her friends, a joke, a text meant for someone else. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe I forced myself to take a slow breath, trying to push down the rising panic clawing its way up my throat. But deep down, in the part of me I had been desperately trying to ignore, I already knew. This wasn't nothing. This was something. Something that was about to destroy everything. I didn't touch the phone, didn't open the message. I just sat there, staring at the screen, waiting, hoping, it would buzz again, giving me more. A name, another clue, something to explain this away. But it didn't. It just lay there face up mocking me. The shower was still running. I turned my head, looking at the thin gap in the bathroom door. Steam poured out, filling the room with warmth, but I felt nothing but cold. Emily was in there, completely unaware that her secret had just started to unravel. I exhaled slowly, my thoughts a tangled mess. Should I ask her? Confront her right here, right now? Or should I wait, gather more proof, see how far she was willing to go? A part of me needed to hear her lie to my face, needed to watch her fake innocence, to see if she could look me in the eye and still pretend to love me. Because if she was capable of that, then she was capable of anything. The shower turned off. The pipes groaned. And just like that, the moment was over. I quickly stood up, stepping away from the nightstand just as Emily emerged, her hair wrapped in a towel, steam curling around her like she had just walked out of a dream. She smiled at me. "Hey, babe." Her voice was light, easy, like nothing had changed, like she hadn't just gotten a message that could shatter our entire life. I forced myself to smile back. "Hey." She crossed the room, pressing a quick kiss to my cheek before grabbing her phone off the nightstand. She didn't even hesitate, just swiped it open, glanced at the screen for half a second, then cleared the notification. Just like that, like it was nothing. My stomach twisted. She didn't look nervous, didn't flinch, didn't panic. She just hit it, effortlessly. And that was the moment I realized this wasn't the first time. She had done this before, and now I was going to find out just how deep the betrayal ran. Friday night, Emily stood in front of the full-length mirror, carefully adjusting the thin straps of her new dress. A dress I had never seen before. It was sleek, black, tighter than anything she usually wore. The kind of dress that wasn't meant for casual drinks with the girls. It was meant to turn heads. I sat on the edge of the bed, watching her through the reflection in the mirror, pretending I wasn't analyzing every tiny detail. The way she touched up her makeup, just a little too perfect. The way she spritzed on her most expensive perfume. The one she always said was too special for just a night out. The way she hummed softly to herself, light, airy, almost excited. Excited. It made my stomach turn. She hadn't looked this excited in months. Not when we had date nights. Not when we spent weekends together. Not when she kissed me goodbye before work. But now, she was practically glowing. And yet, when I asked the simplest of questions, "So, where are you guys going?" she hesitated. Not long, just a second, but long enough. Long enough for me to notice. She glanced at me briefly before turning her attention back to her earrings, avoiding direct eye contact. "Oh, some bar downtown." Megan made the plans. Megan, her go-to excuse. I kept my expression neutral, forced a smile, pretended I believed her, because I already knew the truth. Megan wasn't expecting her tonight. I knew that for a fact, because earlier that day, I had sent Megan a simple text. "Hey, you and Emily got anything fun planned for tonight?" And she responded almost immediately. "No, just a lazy night in." Why? I had stared at that message for a long time, felt my heartbeat in my throat. And then I made a decision. Tonight, I wasn't letting her get away with it. The drive. She left around 8:30, heels clicking against the pavement, her coat draped loosely over her shoulders as she slipped into her car. I waited, gave her a solid 5-minute head start before grabbing my keys and heading out. The entire drive, my pulse hammered in my ears. I kept telling myself that maybe, just maybe, I was wrong. Maybe she had forgotten to mention that Megan changed her mind. Maybe I was overthinking things. Maybe I was being paranoid. But the moment I spotted her car turning onto the freeway instead of heading downtown, I knew she wasn't going to a bar. She wasn't meeting Megan. She wasn't out with the girls. She was lying. And whatever was waiting for her at the end of that drive, it wasn't just drinks and small talk. It was something much, much worse. So I followed her. Carefully. Quietly. Not too close, not too far. Just enough to see where this road would take her. And when she finally pulled into a dimly lit parking lot, not at a bar, not at a restaurant, but at a hotel, my grip tightened around the steering wheel. Because in that moment, every doubt, every excuse, every small hope that I was wrong, vanished. I swallowed hard, my mouth dry as I watched her from a distance. She parked near the side entrance, her movements quick, almost practiced, like she had done this before, like she had done this many, many times before. And just when I thought my heart couldn't sink any lower, another car pulled up right beside hers. A car I recognized, a car I knew. And when the driver stepped out, when I saw his face, when I realized exactly who she was meeting, everything inside me snapped. Because this wasn't just some random stranger. This wasn't some unknown mystery man. It was someone I trusted, someone I never expected. And now, there was no turning back. Now, I was going to get the truth, no matter what it took. The night air was thick with tension, the city lights blurring past as I followed her car through the darkened streets. I kept a safe distance, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. My heart pounded, my pulse a relentless drum in my ears. This was insane. I shouldn't have been doing this. I shouldn't have to. But after weeks, months, of little lies, late nights, and that one text message from an unknown number, I couldn't just sit at home and pretend everything was fine. Not tonight. Tonight I was going to get my answer. The truth, whether I was ready for it or not. The wrong turn. I expected her to head downtown. Maybe to a bar. Maybe to some fancy lounge where she and her friends would sip overpriced cocktails and gossip about work. That's what she said, after all. That was the story. But instead, she took a completely different route. The moment she veered off the main road and took an exit that led away from the city, something inside me tightened. I followed, my stomach twisting into a sickening knot. This wasn't downtown. This wasn't a bar. This was a highway leading straight to the outskirts of the city. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to stay focused. Maybe she changed plans. Maybe the girls decided on a quieter place. Maybe, but no. I knew better. She wasn't meeting Megan. She wasn't grabbing drinks. She was heading somewhere she didn't want me to know about. And that meant only one thing. I was about to catch her in the act. The hotel. 15 minutes later, she turned onto a narrow, dimly lit street. And when I saw the glowing neon sign ahead, my stomach dropped. It wasn't a bar. It wasn't a restaurant. It was a hotel. A small, discreet one. The kind of place with no security cameras, no questions asked, and rooms you could rent by the hour. I pulled into a parking lot across the street, killing my headlights. I sat there, my breath shallow, my chest tight with something between fury and heartbreak. And then I saw her. She pulled into a spot near the side entrance. Her car was barely in park before she stepped out, moving quickly, like she'd done this before. Like she was comfortable here. Like she belonged here. I clenched my jaw, my mind racing. This was it, the proof I had been trying to ignore. But just as I thought it couldn't get any worse, it did. Because another car pulled up right beside hers. A sleek, black BMW. One I recognized immediately. A car that had been in my driveway before. A car that belonged to someone I trusted. And when the driver stepped out, when I saw his face, when I realized exactly who she was meeting, the world around me blurred. It wasn't a stranger. It was Mark, my best friend. The ultimate betrayal. My entire body went numb. I sat there, frozen, watching as the woman I loved, the woman I had built a life with, walked straight into the arms of another man. Not just any man. My friend. I felt my breath hitch, my chest tightening like a steel cage around my ribs. Mark glanced around the parking lot. Quick, cautious. Emily, on the other hand, she didn't hesitate. She walked up to him, her heels clicking against the pavement, her movements smooth, practiced. And then, right there, under the dim glow of the streetlights, she kissed him. Not a quick, guilty peck. A slow, deep, intimate kiss. Like they had done it 1,000 times before. My hands shook as I gripped the steering wheel. I wanted to move. Wanted to storm out of the car, demand an explanation, throw a punch, scream, anything. But I couldn't. I couldn't do anything except sit there and watch my entire world fall apart. Because this wasn't just cheating. This was a betrayal that cut deeper than anything I had ever imagined. And now I had a choice. I could walk away and let them think they got away with it. Or I could go inside and make damn sure they knew exactly who they had just betrayed. And as I opened my car door, stepping out into the cold night air, I knew exactly what I was going to do. The air inside my car felt heavy, thick, suffocating. I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles turning white, my breath coming in sharp, uneven bursts. This was it, the moment I had been dreading, the moment I had secretly hoped would never come. But there it was, right in front of me. Her car, sitting in the far end of the parking lot, tucked away near the side entrance of the hotel. She had been careful. She always was. She hadn't parked directly in front of the building. Hadn't pulled up near the entrance where anyone could see. She had chosen the shadows. Like she knew she didn't belong here. Like she had done this before. And then, my eyes moved to the car beside hers. A sleek, black BMW. One I recognized immediately. One that had been parked in my own driveway more times than I could count. And suddenly, everything inside me went still. It wasn't just some random stranger. It was his. Not just another man, my friend. My best friend. Mark. The ultimate betrayal. A slow, sickening realization twisted through me, coiling around my ribs like barbed wire. This wasn't just cheating. This was something worse. This was my wife. The woman I had given my heart to, the woman I trusted more than anyone, betraying me with the person I trusted almost as much. I felt something inside me snap. Not just anger. Not just heartbreak. Something deeper. Something colder. I squeezed my eyes shut, forcing air into my lungs, but it didn't help. Because no matter how much I wanted to deny it, no matter how badly I wanted to tell myself there had to be some other explanation, I knew the truth. It was happening. Right now. In that building. In some cheap, dimly lit hotel room. My wife was in there. With him. And I was sitting here, watching it unfold like a bad dream I couldn't wake up from. The war inside me. My hands trembled as I clenched the steering wheel, my pulse pounding so hard I could feel it in my skull. Every instinct in me screamed to act, to get out of the car, to storm inside, to throw open the door to whatever disgusting room they were in and let them see me standing there, let them see the consequences of their lies. I wanted to watch the horror dawn on her face, wanted to see Mark scramble, wanted to hear whatever pathetic excuse would fall from his mouth. But another part of me, the rational part, the broken part, the part that was drowning in betrayal, froze. Because if I went inside, if I actually walked through those doors, I would never be the same. What I saw inside that hotel would be something I could never unsee. And the weight of that thought settled over me, pressing down until I could barely breathe. So I just sat there, hands shaking, mind spiraling, staring at those two cars side by side, perfectly aligned, just like they had aligned against me. And for the first time in my life, I didn't know what to do. The breaking point. Minutes passed, maybe seconds. I couldn't tell anymore. Time felt warped, distorted, stretched thin like my own sanity. Then movement. The side entrance to the hotel opened, and before I even had time to process it, they walked out, together, Emily and Mark, side by side, their bodies too close, their movements too in sync. I had spent years memorizing her every expression, every glance, every tiny detail that made her her. And yet, when I looked at her now, I didn't recognize the woman in front of me. She looked different, relaxed, happy, like she belonged there. She turned toward Mark, saying something with a soft laugh, the kind of laugh I hadn't heard in months. And then, she touched him, not just a casual brush of the arm, not just a friendly pat on the back. Her fingers lingered, intimate, familiar, like this wasn't new, like this was routine, like this had been happening for a long time. And at that moment, I knew this wasn't just a mistake. This wasn't a drunken one-time thing. This was a full-blown affair. And suddenly, the rage inside me burned hotter than the heartbreak. The hurt, the disbelief, the pain, they all took a back seat to something sharper. Because this was war. Everything inside me was screaming to move, to storm inside, to rip open the door to whatever cheap, disgusting hotel room they were in and catch them in the act. To watch their faces crumble, their excuses die in their throats. But that wasn't enough. I didn't just want confrontation. I wanted proof. I wanted the kind of truth that couldn't be spun, couldn't be denied. Something real, tangible. Something that, when she tried to lie her way out of this later, asterisk, asterisk, and I knew she would, asterisk, asterisk, I could hold up in front of her face and say, explain this. So instead of letting my rage take control, I waited, watched, plotted, capturing the lie. I took a slow breath, pulled out my phone, and did what I never imagined I'd have to do. I took a picture, not just of her car, not just of his, but both of them together, side by side, perfectly aligned like two pieces of a puzzle that never should have fit but did, the visual proof of betrayal. I took another shot, making sure I had everything. The license plates, the hotel entrance, the glowing neon sign in the background. Undeniable evidence. My hands trembled as I hit save. This was real. It wasn't a suspicion anymore. It wasn't paranoia. It was fact. And now, I had a choice. Every step felt like a death sentence. I could have stayed in the car, driven home, ignored what I had just seen. But I wasn't that kind of man. I had spent years building a life with this woman. A marriage. A future. I wasn't going to just sit back and let her rip it all apart without facing me. So I got out. The cold night air hit me like a slap, but I barely felt it. All I could hear was the blood rushing in my ears. All I could see was that damn hotel entrance ahead of me. My legs felt heavy, weighted down by something deeper than exhaustion. Because this wasn't just a walk. This was a march toward the truth. A truth that would change everything. Forever. Each step was slow, measured. A countdown to the moment I'd see it with my own eyes. Because some part of me, asterisk, asterisk, the part still clinging to hope, to denial, asterisk, asterisk, needed to see it. I needed the final nail in the coffin. The one that would bury whatever love I had left for her. And once I stepped through those doors, there would be no going back. The hotel lobby was small. Too small. Dimly lit, with cheap decor and the faint smell of stale air freshener trying to mask the scent of something unclean. Something wrong. A vending machine hummed quietly in the corner. The faint murmur of a late-night news anchor played from a small TV mounted near the check-in desk. But I didn't hear any of it. Didn't see anything except the hallway ahead. Didn't feel anything except the suffocating weight of what I was about to walk into. The walk that changed everything. I stepped inside, my boots pressing into the thin carpet, absorbing the soft crunch of old fibers beneath my weight. The front desk clerk barely even looked up. No questions. No suspicion. Just a bored man, flipping through a magazine, used to seeing people like them come and go without a trace. I wasn't the first betrayed husband to walk through these doors, and I wouldn't be the last. My stomach twisted, but I forced my feet to keep moving, past the check-in desk, past the seating area with cracked leather chairs, past the hallway that led to rooms where secrets lived and promises died. And then I reached the elevator. The numbers above the doors blinked 3, 2, 1. A quiet chime rang out. The doors slid open, and there they were, the ultimate betrayal, unfolding in real time. Emily and him, laughing, smiling, completely oblivious. Her hair was slightly messy, not in a careless way, but in the way that spoke of fingers tangled in it, hands gripping, lips pressing against skin that wasn't mine. Her lipstick? Smudged, not from drinking, not from laughing too hard, from him. And his hand? It was still on her waist, holding her, touching her in a way that used to be mine. They weren't just stepping out of an elevator. They were stepping out of a world where I didn't exist, a world where I had already been replaced. And the worst part? She looked happy, not guilty, not regretful, just happy. The moment she saw me, Emily was still mid-laugh when she finally turned her head, still caught in whatever flirtatious moment they had shared upstairs, still wrapped in him. Then her eyes landed on me, and everything stopped. Her entire body went rigid. Her breath hitched just for a second, and that stupid, beautiful, easy smile she had been giving him, gone, replaced by something else, something cold, something fearful. Like a criminal caught in the act. Mark followed her gaze, turning toward me a half-second too late. And when he saw me, he paled. His fingers jerked away from her waist, like the contact itself suddenly burned. Like letting go now would erase the evidence of what had already happened. But it was too late. Too damn late. I had seen everything, and nothing they could say would ever change what I knew now. She was his. And I was nothing to her anymore. The silence that said it all. None of us spoke. For a moment, the entire world felt like it had slowed to a crawl. The TV in the background still mumbled about stock prices and weather updates. The vending machine still hummed. The front desk clerk still flipped his magazine, oblivious. But between us three, silence. Thick, unbearable, suffocating. Because what words could possibly fix this? What excuse could she give? What pathetic lie could he try to spin? There was nothing. So I just stood there, watching, waiting, because I wanted her to break first. I wanted him to stammer out some kind of defense. I wanted to see which one of them would have the audacity to speak first. And when they finally did, it wasn't an apology. It wasn't even a confession. It was something worse. Something that made the betrayal sink even deeper into my bones. Something I would never forget. She whispered his name first. Not mine. His. And in that moment, I knew she was already gone. Time didn't just slow, it shattered. Like glass hitting pavement. Like a clock grinding to a halt. Gears locking. Freezing the world around me. Emily was still mid-giggle when she turned her head, her laughter spilling out, warm and soft, still leaning into him, still existing in a moment she thought was safe. And then she saw me, her body locked up like a puppet with its strings cut. Her lips, still curved from the last remnants of her smile, twitched, then fell completely. Her breath caught in her throat. Her pupils blew wide, panic flooding in before she could even think to mask it. That was the real Emily, not the one who smoothed her hair in the mirror before going out, not the one who had just spent the night with another man. This one, the one who had been caught, the one who, for the first time, knew she had lost control. And suddenly, the woman who had been so confident, so effortless in her deceit, looked like a child caught stealing. The weight of silence. Mark was slower to react. He was still smiling, still caught up in whatever joke he had just whispered in her ear. Then, following her gaze, he turned, and when his eyes met mine, his entire face drained of color. His mouth opened slightly, but nothing came out. For a second, no one moved. The tension in the air was thick, suffocating, absolute. The background noise of the hotel faded. The faint sound of a TV murmuring in the distance. The hum of the vending machine. The quiet shuffle of the bored front desk clerk flipping through a magazine. All of it gone, because right here, in this moment, nothing else existed. Just us. 3 people. 2 of them guilty. 1 of them ruined. The betrayal in her eyes. I wasn't sure what I expected to see in Emily's face in that moment. Guilt? Maybe. Regret? A part of me had foolishly hoped. But what I saw instead made my stomach churn. It wasn't sorrow. It wasn't even fear. It was panic. Not because she was ashamed. Not because she had destroyed me. But because she had been caught. She was terrified of what this meant for her. Not for me. Not for us. For her. Her lips parted, the beginnings of a shaky breath pushing past them. But she still hadn't spoken. She couldn't. Because what excuse could she possibly give? What words could fix this? What lie could she spin fast enough to explain away the fact that she had just walked out of an elevator, smiling like a woman in love, with another man, with my best friend, with the man I had welcomed into our home? And for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt something shift inside me. The sadness, the pain, the desperate, suffocating need for answers, all of it evaporated. And in its place, something colder settled in. Something final. Because in that split second, the one where she didn't reach for me, didn't whisper my name, didn't even try to pretend she hadn't just shattered our entire life. I knew. She was already gone. The silence between us was a living thing. Heavy. Suffocating. Waiting to explode. Emily's body was still locked in place. Her breath shallow, uneven. Mark stood beside her, his posture tense, his hands curling into awkward fists at his sides, as if that would somehow make him look stronger, less like a coward. I stepped forward. Slow. Deliberate. They didn't move. Emily's throat bobbed as she swallowed. Mark's fingers twitched. They were waiting for me to speak first, waiting for me to detonate. But I didn't give them the satisfaction. Instead, I tilted my head, eyes locked on Emily's face, studying every microexpression, every shift in her gaze. She wouldn't meet my eyes. Of course she wouldn't. And that's when I said it. Having fun. The power in calmness. My voice was calm. Too calm. Not shaking. Not shouting. Not trembling with heartbreak or rage. And that terrified her more than anything else. Her lips parted. She inhaled sharply. But she didn't speak. She didn't even try. Because what could she say? That it wasn't what it looked like? That she could explain? That she still loved me? All lies. We all knew it. So she stayed silent. Her hands, ones that had once traced the edges of my face, ones that had held mine in promises of forever, now hung limply at her sides. Mark shifted beside her. I turned my gaze toward him, the man I had once called my best friend, the man who had shared beers with me on my porch, who had laughed with me at inside jokes, who had, all this time, been sleeping with my wife. I let my stare linger on him, letting the weight of my presence crush him from the inside out. Then, my voice still unnervingly even, I asked, "Was it worth it?" The coward revealed. Mark flinched, his jaw clenched, his shoulders squared, like he was trying to brace for impact, like he thought I might throw a punch. And God, I wanted to, but he didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked away, down at the floor, at the elevator doors, anywhere but at me, because he couldn't. Coward. The same way he had been sneaking around behind my back, taking what wasn't his, stealing from me in the most personal way possible. He was running again. Only this time, he had nowhere to hide. I let the silence stretch. Let him feel it. Let him drown in it. Then I took another step forward, forcing him to look at me. forcing him to face the wreckage he had created. The moment everything became clear, Emily's breath was coming short and sharp, like she was about to panic, like the reality of the moment was finally settling in. I could feel her reaching for something, some kind of explanation, some kind of damage control. But I was done waiting. I had given her everything. My love, my trust, my life. And this was how she repaid me. She didn't deserve my anger. She didn't deserve a dramatic fight. She deserved exactly what I was giving her, a moment where she realized she had lost me. For good. And as I looked at them, both standing there, guilty, speechless, exposed, I made my final decision. I wasn't going to break. They were. And I was going to make sure they felt every second of it. The silence between us was unbearable. Thick, suffocating. A graveyard of unspoken excuses and shattered trust. Emily stood there, frozen, her breath coming in quick, uneven gasps. Mark was still looking away, avoiding me, avoiding everything. Neither of them spoke, because there was nothing left to say. But I wasn't finished yet. Not yet. The proof that shattered everything. Slowly, methodically, I pulled out my phone. Not out of hesitation, not out of doubt, but because I wanted her to see it. I wanted her to watch the exact moment her lie crumbled beneath the weight of the truth. I turned the screen toward her, tilting it just enough for the soft glow to illuminate her face. Emily's eyes flicked down, and in that instant, I watched her world fall apart. Megan's text message. The one simple message that destroyed her entire defense. Hey, are you and Emily doing anything fun tonight? The proof. The undeniable evidence that she hadn't just lied tonight. She had been lying for weeks. Months, maybe. My jaw clenched as I watched her stare at the screen. Her lips parted slightly, a tiny, choked sound escaping, like she had just been punched in the gut. Like she knew in this exact moment, there was no escape. No more stories to spin. No more twisting the truth. This was checkmate. The breakdown. Her face crumpled. Her shoulders sagged. The confident, carefree woman who had stepped out of that elevator, laughing, glowing, alive. She was gone, replaced by someone who suddenly looked so much smaller, so much more pathetic. Please, she finally whispered. Her voice broke. She reached for me, her fingers trembling, like she could physically pull me back into her web of lies. Like she thought that if she could just touch me, if she could just find the right words, she could make me forget what I had just seen, what I had just felt. But there were no words. Not anymore. She had already explained enough. She just hadn't used words. She used actions. And actions? They spoke louder than any excuse she could ever come up with. Walking away. I exhaled slowly. The anger, the heartbreak, the betrayal, all of it condensed into one final, irreversible decision. I was done. I turned away. And without another word, I walked away from the hotel, away from the wreckage of my marriage, away from her. Emily's breath hitched behind me. I heard her footsteps move, half a step forward, then stop, like she wanted to chase me, like she wanted to beg. But she didn't, because she knew. This was the end. She had already lost me. She just hadn't realized it until now. The last thing I heard, as I pushed open the hotel doors and stepped into the cold night air, I heard it. Emily's sob. Raw, guttural, broken. And for a brief, fleeting second, I almost felt something. Pity, maybe. Regret for the years we had spent together. But then, I remembered. The dress. The perfume. The way she had laughed in his arms. And just like that, any lingering trace of love I had left for her died right there on that hotel floor. So I kept walking, without looking back, because there was nothing left behind me worth saving. The end, or just the beginning.